Maya Thompson wasn't looking for trouble. All she wanted was a fresh start. Her family had just moved to a quiet town in Ohio. Small houses, big lawns, and a high school where everyone seemed to know each other since kindergarten. She walked through the front gates on her first day with her backpack slung over one shoulder, her hair in neat twists, and her eyes fixed straight ahead. She'd been the new kid before back in her old city school, but this felt different. Here she was one of the only black students in the whole building. At first, people just stared. Not in a mean way, more like they'd never seen someone like her up close. Some kids whispered behind their hands. Others gave her wide eyes and quick glances before looking away. Maya kept her head down and followed the map the office had given her. She found her homeroom, slipped into an empty seat near the back, and tried to disappear. But disappearing wasn't easy. By the second day, a group of older boys started noticing her. They hung out near the lockers between classes, laughing too loud and shoving each other like they owned the hallway. Their leader was a tall kid with a Letterman jacket and a smirk that never left his face. He didn't say anything at first, just watched her walk by, then nudged his friends and made a joke she couldn't hear but could feel in her gut. By the third day, the jokes weren't quiet anymore. "Hey, new girl, do you even speak English?" One of them called as she passed. She kept walking. "Bet she listens to weird music," another laughed. Still, she said nothing. It wasn't that she was scared, though part of her was. It was more that she knew how these things went. If she reacted, it would only get worse. So she stayed quiet, kept her steps steady, and reminded herself why she was here. Good grades, a safe neighborhood, and a chance for her mom to finally catch her breath after working double shifts for years. But silence only worked for so long. One afternoon, as she turned the corner toward the science wing, someone stuck out their foot. She tripped hard, her books flying out of her arms and scattering across the floor. Laughter exploded behind her. She didn't look up as she knelt to gather her things, her cheeks burning. A few kids stopped to watch. No one helped. "Oops," the voice said, smooth and mocking. "Didn't see you there." She recognized it. It was the boy in the Letterman jacket. He stood over her with his arms crossed, grinning like he'd just pulled off something brilliant. His friend stood behind him, snickering. Maya took a slow breath. In her mind, she heard her sensei's voice, calm and steady. A true warrior doesn't fight unless she must. But she never lets fear decide her path. She stood up, brushed off her jeans, and looked him in the eye. Not with anger, but with something quieter, stronger. He blinked, caught off guard. For a second, his smirk wavered. Then the bell rang. She walked away without another word. That night, she sat on the edge of her bed staring at the trophy on her shelf, the one she'd earned at her last karate tournament. She'd been training since she was 6 years old. Her grandfather had signed her up after she got jumped on the playground for talking too proper. Back then, karate wasn't just about kicks and punches. It was about learning how to carry yourself, how to stand tall even when the world tries to knock you down. Her mom knocked softly on the door and came in holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. She didn't ask what was wrong, she already knew. She'd seen the way Maya's shoulders tensed when they drove past the school. She'd noticed the silence at dinner. "You don't have to go through this alone," her mom said gently, handing her a mug. Maya wrapped her hands around the warm ceramic. "I know," she said. "But if I tell someone, they'll just say I'm overreacting. Or worse, they'll say I started it." Her mom sat beside her. "You didn't start anything, baby. You just showed up." Maya nodded, but the knot in her stomach didn't loosen. The next morning, she walked into school with her head higher than before. Not because she felt brave, because she refused to let them shrink her. In the hallway, the same group was waiting. This time, they didn't just watch. They followed. "Where you from, anyway?" the leader asked, falling into step beside her. "Somewhere with, jungles?" His friends laughed. Maya kept walking. "Cleveland," she said simply. "Cleveland?" He repeated like it was a punchline. "That's it? Not Africa or something?" She stopped, turned, looked him dead in the eye. "My family's been in Ohio longer than yours, probably." That shut him up for a second, but then he recovered fast. "Whatever. You're still weird," she didn't flinch. "And you're still boring." A few kids nearby gasped. No one talked back to him like that. His face turned red. He stepped closer, looming over her. "You think you're tough?" Maya didn't move. "I think I've got better things to do than waste time on you." She turned and walked away again. This time her heart pounded, but not from fear. From something else. Something like resolve. Later that day during lunch, she sat alone under a tree near the football field. She pulled out her notebook and started sketching. Something she did when her mind was too loud. She didn't notice the group watching her from across the yard until one of them yelled, "Hey, Jungle Girl, eat your bananas over there." Laughter followed. A few kids pointed. Maya closed her notebook slowly. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. But inside something was shifting. She wasn't ashamed of who she was. She never had been. But now, for the first time, she wondered if staying quiet was really the right choice, or if it was just making things easier for them. That evening, after dinner, she tied her belt around her waist and stepped into the backyard. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft oranges and purples. She moved through her katas, each stance precise, each strike controlled. Her body remembered what her mind was still figuring out. That strength isn't just about fighting. It's about knowing when to stand, when to speak, and when to protect yourself, not with anger, but with truth. She didn't want to fight. But if one came, she wouldn't run. And she definitely wouldn't break. The bullying didn't stop. It got worse. At first, it was just words and shoves in the hallway. But soon it started showing up in places Maya couldn't ignore. One morning, she opened her locker and found a crumpled piece of paper stuck to the inside with gum. It read, "Go back to where you came from." Her stomach dropped. She peeled it off slowly, folded it, and tucked it into her pocket, not because she wanted to keep it, but because throwing it away felt like letting them win. Then came the lunchbox incident. She'd packed her favorite meal, rice, stewed greens, and fried plantains, something her grandmother used to make. She was sitting alone near the back of the cafeteria when the group walked by. The leader didn't say anything this time. He just smirked, kicked her lunchbox off the table, and stomped on it hard enough to crack the plastic. Food spilled across the floor. A few kids laughed. Others looked away fast, like they hadn't seen a thing. Maya didn't move. She just stared at the mess, her throat tight. She wanted to scream. She wanted to stand up and say something sharp and final, but she remembered her sensei's voice again. Anger is fire. If you don't control it, it burns you first. So she stood up quietly, grabbed a napkin from the dispenser, and started cleaning it up. Not because she owed them dignity, but because she refused to give them the show they wanted. That night, she sat at the kitchen table while her mom washed dishes. The silence between them was heavy. Finally, her mom turned off the faucet and dried her hands. "You gonna tell me what's really going on?" Maya looked down at her hands. "It's just hard being the only one." Her mom sat across from her. "Only one what?" "Only one who looks like me, talks like me, eats like me." She swallowed. "They act like I don't belong here." Her mom reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You belong everywhere you walk, baby. Don't let anyone make you feel small." "I know," Maya said softly. "But what if telling someone just makes it worse? What if they call me a snitch or say I'm lying?" Her mom didn't answer right away. She just looked at her daughter, the same girl who'd once cried because someone said her hair looked messy, but now walked into school every day like she owned the place, even when her knees shook. "You don't have to fight this alone," she said finally. "But I won't push you. You decide when you're ready." Maya nodded, but inside she felt torn. Part of her wanted to report everything. The notes, the lunchbox, the way they followed her between classes like she was prey. But another part worried that adults would brush it off. "Kids will be kids," they'd say. Or worse, they'd call her parents in for a meeting and make it seem like she was the problem for causing drama. So she stayed quiet. Again. But silence has a weight. And by the end of the week, it was getting heavier. One afternoon, as she walked to her bike after school, she noticed them waiting near the racks. Her stomach clenched. There were 3 of them this time, leaning against the fence like they'd been expecting her. The leader stepped forward, blocking her path. "Where you headed, new girl?" he asked, voice dripping with fake friendliness. Maya gripped her backpack straps tighter. "Home." "You always run off so fast," he said, circling her slightly. "Scared of us or something?" She didn't answer. She just kept her eyes on him, steady and calm. One of his friends snickered. "Bet she's scared of her own shadow." Another added, "Or maybe she's scared we'll find out she's not even from here. Maybe she's lying about everything." Maya's jaw tightened, but she didn't flinch. "I've told you my name." Migrate, where I'm from. If you don't believe me, that's your problem, not mine. The leader's smile faded. He stepped closer. So close she could smell the cheap cologne he'd probably borrowed from his dad. You think you're better than us? He asked, voice low now. No, she said. I just don't waste my time trying to prove anything to people who don't matter. For a second, the whole yard went quiet. Even his friends looked surprised, then his face twisted. He grabbed her backpack and yanked it off her shoulder. Before she could react, he threw it to the ground and stomped on it, just like he'd done with her lunchbox. How's that for not mattering? He sneered. Maya's breath caught. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. Every muscle in her body screamed to move, to block, to strike, to defend. But she forced herself to stay still, because she knew if she fought back, even in self-defense, they'd twist the story. They'd say she attacked them. And who would believe her? So she bent down slowly, picked up her backpack, brushed off the dirt, and slung it over her shoulder. Then she looked him in the eye and said, "You're not worth my energy." And she walked away. But this time, when she got home, she didn't hide her feelings. She told her mom everything. The notes, the lunchbox, the bike rack. Her voice shook, but she didn't cry. Her mom listened without interrupting, her face growing harder with every word. When Maya finished, her mom stood up, walked to the phone, and dialed the school. No, Maya said quickly. Wait, what if it backfires? Her mom turned to her, eyes fierce but gentle. Baby, you've carried this long enough. It's not your job to protect them from consequences. Maya bit her lip. She wanted to believe that. But fear still clung to her like a second skin. The next day at school, nothing seemed different at first. Same hallways, same stairs, same whispers. But during third period, the principal's voice came over the intercom. Maya Thompson, please report to the main office. Her heart jumped. She walked there slowly, palms sweating. But when she arrived, it wasn't punishment waiting for her. It was a counselor, a kind woman with soft eyes and a warm voice who asked her to sit down and just talk. No accusations, no pressure, just space to be heard. For the first time in weeks, Maya felt like someone was actually on her side. But as she left the office, she saw the group huddled near the water fountain. The leader caught her eye and gave her a look that said, "You're gonna regret this." And just like that, the fear came rushing back, because telling the truth hadn't made the problem disappear. It had just changed shape. Now she wasn't just the new girl. She was the one who snitched, and in their world that was worse than being different. But as she walked to her next class, she straightened her shoulders. She hadn't done anything wrong, and if they wanted to fight, they'd find out soon enough that she wasn't just quiet, she was ready. Gym class had always been Maya's least favorite part of the week. Not because she wasn't good at it, she was actually one of the strongest kids in her grade, but because it meant changing in front of everyone, moving in ways that drew attention, and worst of all, being grouped with people who barely saw her as human. But this week was different. The school had brought in a guest instructor for a special unit on personal safety and basic self-defense. Maya recognized him right away. He was from the same karate dojo she'd trained at back in Cleveland. He gave her a small, knowing nod when she walked in, but said nothing. She relaxed a little. At least someone here understood her world. The instructor started with a simple talk about boundaries, voice, and body language. Real strength, he said, isn't about throwing punches. It's about knowing when to speak up, when to walk away, and when to protect yourself, calmly and clearly. Maya sat up straighter. It was like he was speaking directly to her. Then came the demo. Who wants to help me show a basic block and redirect move? He asked, scanning the room. A few hands shot up, mostly boys eager to look tough. But the instructor's eyes landed on Maya. You, he said gently. Would you mind? Her stomach flipped. She didn't want to stand out, not now. But she also knew this was safe, controlled. So she stood, walked to the front, and nodded. The class went quiet. The instructor explained the move slowly. If someone grabs your wrist like this, he gently took her arm. Don't pull away hard. Instead, turn your body, step in, and use their momentum. In one smooth motion, Maya rotated her shoulder, twisted her wrist free, and pivoted so she was behind him, her hand resting lightly on his elbow, not pushing, just guiding. It looked effortless. Like dancing, a few kids gasped. Someone whispered, "Whoa." The instructor smiled. Exactly like that, calm, precise, no anger. Just control. He turned to the class. This isn't about fighting. It's about confidence. About knowing your body can protect you if it has to. When Maya returned to her spot, she kept her eyes down, hoping the moment would pass. But it didn't. During lunch, she overheard two girls talking near the vending machines. Did you see her move? That was insane. I heard she's been doing karate since she was little. No way. She's so quiet. Yeah, but quiet doesn't mean weak. Later that afternoon, someone posted a short clip of the demo on social media. It wasn't edited or dramatic, just 30 seconds of Maya executing the move with quiet focus. But it spread fast. By the end of the day, half the school had seen it. And then came the comment that changed everything. Beneath the video, someone tagged the local martial arts academy. A reply popped up from an account with a black belt emoji in the bio. That's Maya, junior black belt. Trains 3 times a week. One of our best. The comment got dozens of likes. Screenshots flew through group chats. Even kids who'd never spoken to her stared a little differently in the hallway. The group that had been tormenting her noticed too. At first, they laughed it off. Yeah, right. Like she's some ninja. The leader scoffed in the locker room loud enough for others to hear. She couldn't fight her way out of a paper bag. But his friends weren't so sure. One of them muttered, "Dude, did you see how fast she moved?" That wasn't fake. Whatever, he snapped. It's just a trick. Doesn't mean anything. Still, doubt had crept in. And doubt made people nervous. Maya noticed the shift. They didn't follow her as much. Didn't shout things when she passed. But their eyes watched her now. Not with mockery, but with something sharper. Suspicion, maybe even fear. She didn't brag. Didn't post about it. Didn't even mention the video to her mom. But inside she felt a quiet pride. Not because she wanted to scare anyone, but because, for once, people were seeing her as more than just the new black girl. They were seeing her skill, her discipline, her strength. A few days later, a quiet boy from her math class approached her after school. Hey, he said, shuffling his feet. My little sister gets picked on at her middle school. Do you think you could show her a few moves? Like just to feel safer? Maya blinked. Me? He nodded. Yeah, you seem like you know how to handle yourself. She smiled, really smiled for the first time in weeks. I'd be happy to. That weekend she met the girl at the park. She didn't teach her kicks or punches. Instead, she showed her how to stand tall, how to use her voice, how to walk like she owned the sidewalk. The girl left with her head higher, and Maya felt something lift inside her too. Back at school, things stayed tense but quiet. Until Monday. She was walking to her locker when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned, expecting the usual group. But it was just one of them. The smallest one. The one who always laughed loudest but never threw the first punch. He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets. Hey, he mumbled. Maya waited. I saw the video, he said, not meeting her eyes. My cousin does taekwondo. He said what you did was legit. She didn't say anything. Just watched him. He shifted his weight. Look, I'm not saying the others are gonna stop, but I don't want to be part of it anymore. Maya studied his face. He looked nervous. Sincere. Okay, she said simply. He nodded once, turned, and walked away. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. That night, Maya practiced in the backyard again. Not the flashy moves, just the basics. Stance, breath, balance. She thought about how people saw her before, and how they saw her now. She didn't want to be feared. She just wanted to be respected. And maybe, just maybe, her quiet strength was starting to speak louder than their noise ever could. The tension at school had been simmering for days. Quiet on the surface, but boiling underneath. Maya could feel it in the way eyes followed her in the hallway, in the hushed conversations that stopped when she walked by. The group hadn't confronted her directly since the gym class demo, but their stares had gotten sharper, angrier. They didn't like that people were starting to see her differently. That she wasn't just the quiet new girl anymore, but someone with skill, with confidence, with respect. And the leader? He was the worst of all. His pride had taken a hit, and wounded pride can be dangerous. Maya tried to stay alert without being paranoid. She stuck to crowded hallways, left class a few minutes early to avoid being cornered, and always kept her phone charged in case she needed to call her mom. But no matter how careful she was, trouble found her anyway. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. Most students had already gone to lunch, but Maya stayed behind to finish a lab report in the science wing. When she finally packed up and headed out, the hallway was nearly empty. Too empty. She quickened her pace toward the cafeteria, her sneakers quiet against the linoleum floor. That's when she heard the door behind her click shut. She turned. 3 figures stepped out of the band room. 2 she recognized from the group, and the leader in front, arms crossed, expression dark. "Going somewhere?" he asked, voice low. Maya stopped. Her heart pounded, but she kept her breathing slow and even. "Yeah, lunch." "Not yet," he said, stepping closer. His friends fanned out slightly, blocking the hallway behind her. "We need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," she said calmly. "Oh, I think there is." He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You've been acting real high and mighty lately. Like you're better than us because you know a few karate moves." "I never said that," Maya replied. "I just want to be left alone." "Too bad," he shot back. "You made yourself a target when you went crying to the office." "I didn't cry," she said evenly. "I told the truth." That seemed to anger him more. He took another step forward. "Prove it then. Show us what you've really got." His friend behind him laughed nervously. "Yeah, come on. You're a black belt, right? Let's see it." Maya didn't move. "I don't fight for show." "Then what's the point?" The leader snapped. "All that training just to run away?" She looked him in the eye. "The point is to protect myself. Not to hurt people who don't deserve it," he scoffed. "Spare me the lecture." Then, without warning, he grabbed her arm. It happened fast, but not fast enough. Maya's body reacted before her mind could catch up. Years of training kicked in like muscle memory. She twisted her wrist just enough to break his grip, stepped into his space, and used his own momentum to guide him off balance. In one smooth motion, she pivoted behind him, placed one hand on his shoulder and the other on his elbow, and gently, but firmly, guided him down to one knee. She didn't throw him, didn't strike, just controlled the situation with calm precision. His friends froze. One of them actually took a step back. "Let go of me," he shouted, more shocked than hurt. "I will," Maya said, voice steady, "as soon as you promise to leave me alone." He struggled for a second, but her hold was solid, not painful but impossible to break without hurting himself. He finally stopped moving. "Fine, just get off." She released him immediately and stepped back, hands open at her sides. "I told you," she said quietly. "I don't want to hurt anyone, but I won't let you hurt me either." He stood up slowly, brushing off his jeans, face red with humiliation. He wouldn't look at her. His friends just stared, wide-eyed. Before anyone could say another word, the bandroom door opened. Ms. Rivera, the music teacher, stood in the doorway holding a stack of sheet music. She took in the scene, the 3 boys, Maya standing calm but alert, the tension thick in the air. "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice sharp. No one spoke at first. Then one of the boys, the quieter one who'd talked to Maya days earlier, blurted out. He grabbed her. She just defended herself. The leader shot him a furious look, but it was too late. Ms. Rivera's eyes narrowed. "Is that true?" Maya nodded. He grabbed my arm. "I didn't hit him. I just got free." The teacher studied her face, then the boys. She'd seen enough. "All of you, my office now." What followed wasn't a dramatic courtroom scene. It was quiet, serious, and real. Ms. Rivera called the principal. Statements were taken. The 2 friends, shaken and guilty, told the truth about the notes, the lunchbox, the hallway shoves, everything. Even the leader didn't deny it this time. He just sat with his arms crossed, staring at the floor, too proud to apologize but too cornered to lie. Maya didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She just answered questions honestly, her voice steady, her hands still. Later that afternoon, her mom picked her up early. They sat in the car in silence for a moment before her mom finally said, "Are you okay?" Maya nodded. "Yeah, I'm okay." "You didn't have to handle that alone," her mom said softly. "I know," Maya replied, "but I'm glad I didn't lose myself in the process." Back at school, word spread fast, but this time it wasn't about fear or rumors. It was about respect. Kids who'd never spoken to her before gave her small nods in the hallway. A few even said hey as she passed. The group that had tormented her, they avoided her completely. Not out of fear maybe, but out of shame, and the leader? He served a 3-day suspension, had to attend counseling, and was required to write a letter, not just to Maya, but to the whole school, about bullying and accountability. He never read it aloud, but Maya heard it was honest. Not perfect, but honest. That night, Maya stood in her backyard again, the moon casting soft shadows on the grass. She didn't practice katas this time. She just stood there, breathing in the cool air, feeling the weight of the past few weeks finally begin to lift. She hadn't wanted a fight, but when it came, she'd stayed true to her training, to her values, and to herself. And that, more than any black belt or trophy, was the real victory. The days after the incident in the band room felt different, not because everything was suddenly perfect, but because the air had cleared. It was like a storm had passed, leaving behind damp sidewalks and a quieter sky. At school, people didn't whisper about Maya behind her back anymore. They looked at her, yes, but now it was with something closer to respect than suspicion. Even teachers seemed to watch her with new eyes, not as a victim, but as someone who'd handled a hard situation with grace. The school didn't make a big show of it, but changes started happening quietly. A new peer support group was announced during morning announcements. Posters went up in the hallways with messages like, "Your voice matters," and "Stand up, speak out." And then came the invitation. One afternoon, the counselor pulled Maya aside after class. "We're holding a student assembly next week on kindness and inclusion," she said gently. "Would you be willing to share your story? Just a few minutes. Nothing fancy, just your truth." Maya's first instinct was to say no. She wasn't looking for attention. She never had been. But then she thought about the girl from the park, the one she'd taught to stand tall. She thought about the quiet boy who'd asked for help for his sister. And she thought about all the kids who might be going through what she'd been through, feeling alone and unheard. So she said yes. The day of the assembly, her stomach fluttered as she stood backstage, listening to the low hum of students filing into the auditorium. She wasn't going to give a speech full of big words or dramatic lines. She just wanted to say what mattered. When her name was called, she walked out slowly, hands clasped in front of her. She didn't look at the crowd right away. She took a breath, then spoke into the mic, her voice calm but clear. "I didn't come here looking for a fight," she began. "I just wanted to go to school, learn, and go home. But sometimes just being yourself is enough to make people uncomfortable, especially if you look or sound different from what they're used to." She paused. A few kids shifted in their seats. Others leaned forward. I stayed quiet for a long time because I thought it would make things easier. But silence doesn't stop bullies, it just gives them more room to grow. When I finally spoke up, it wasn't because I wanted revenge. It was because I realized I deserved to feel safe. And so does everyone else. She didn't mention names. Didn't point fingers. Just told her truth simply, honestly. When she finished, there was a beat of silence. Then one student started clapping. Then another. Soon the whole room was applauding. Not wildly, but warmly, like they'd really listened. Afterward, kids she'd never spoken to before came up to her between classes. "That took guts," one girl said. "I've been scared to tell anyone what's been happening to me," a boy admitted quietly. Even a teacher stopped her in the hallway and said, "Thank you for showing us what courage really looks like." Maya didn't feel like a hero. She just felt seen. Around the same time, the school launched a peer mediation program, a group of trained students who could help classmates work through conflicts before they turned ugly. To her surprise, several kids nominated Maya to be part of it. She agreed, not because she wanted power, but because she knew what it felt like to have no one in your corner. She started meeting with younger students during lunch, listening more than talking, offering advice only when asked. She taught them simple things, how to use I statements instead of accusations, how to walk away without feeling weak, how to find a trusted adult when things got too heavy. She never mentioned karate unless they asked, and even then, she always said the same thing. The best move is the one you don't have to make. Back in the hallways, the group that had once tormented her kept their distance. The leader returned after his suspension, quieter, less loud, less sure of himself. He never apologized directly, but one day he held the door open for her without a word. She nodded in return. It wasn't friendship, but it was peace, and sometimes that's enough. At home, life settled into a new rhythm. Her mom stopped checking the school app every 5 minutes. They started having dinner together again without the shadow of worry hanging over them. One evening, as they washed dishes side by side, her mom said, "You've changed, you know." Maya smiled. "In a good way?" "In the best way," her mom replied. You didn't let them break you. You used what you had, your mind, your heart, your training, and you turned pain into something useful. Maya thought about that. She hadn't set out to change the school. She just wanted to survive it. But somewhere along the way, survival had turned into something more, something that helped others feel less alone. By the end of the semester, the hallways felt lighter. Not perfect. Kids still argued, cliques still formed, and misunderstandings still happened. But there was a new awareness in the air. Teachers paid closer attention. Students spoke up more. And when someone acted unkind, others didn't just look away, they stepped in. Maya still sat under her tree at lunch sometimes, sketching in her notebook. But now she wasn't always alone. Sometimes a friend would join her. Sometimes a curious freshman would ask about self-defense. And sometimes she'd just sit in silence, watching the clouds drift by, feeling the sun on her face, finally at ease. She never wore her black belt to school. She didn't need to. People could see her strength now, not in her fists, but in the way she carried herself, in the calm in her voice, in the kindness she offered even to those who hadn't earned it. She hadn't come to this town looking for a battle. But in facing one, she'd found her place, not by changing who she was, but by refusing to hide it. And that, more than anything, was what made her belong. The story was supposed to end after the assembly. After the quiet peace settled in, after the bullies backed off, after Maya found her footing and the school started to change. But life doesn't wrap up in neat chapters. It keeps unfolding one ordinary day at a time. And sometimes, the real healing doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the small moments no one sees. A few weeks after the peer mediation program began, Maya noticed something new. Kids started coming to her not just with big problems, but with little ones too. A 7th grader who got laughed at for wearing mismatched socks. A freshman nervous about speaking up in class. Even a boy who was scared to tell his parents he failed a test. They didn't need a black belt. They needed someone who'd listen without judgment. And Maya, without even trying, had become that person. She never made a big deal out of it. She'd sit with them at lunch, walk with them between classes, or just send a quick note. You got this. It wasn't about being a hero. It was about being human. Then came the letter. It arrived in her school mailbox one Tuesday. Plain white envelope, no return address. Inside was a folded sheet of notebook paper. The handwriting was messy, but the words were clear. I used to laugh when they picked on you. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be next. But after your talk, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Last week I saw someone making fun of a kid for stuttering and I told them to knock it off. It felt weird, but good. Thanks for showing us it's okay to speak up. Maya read it 3 times. She didn't know who wrote it, and maybe that was the point. It wasn't about credit. It was about ripple effects. One act of courage, however small, could inspire another. And another. At home, things felt lighter too. Her mom started smiling more. Real smiles, not the tired ones she used to wear after double shifts. They began cooking together on Sundays, trying out old family recipes passed down from her grandmother. One evening, as they stirred a pot of red beans, her mom said, "You know, I was so scared when we moved here. I worried you'd get swallowed up by this place, lost in a crowd that didn't see you." Maya looked up from the chopping board. "But I wasn't lost," she said softly. "I just had to remind them I was here." Her mom reached over and squeezed her shoulder. "You did more than that. You made space for yourself and for others like you." Spring turned to early summer. The trees filled out, the air warmed, and the school year began to wind down. Maya wasn't the same girl who'd walked through those doors months ago. Head down, heart guarded. She still liked quiet corners and sketching in her notebook, but now she also laughed louder in the cafeteria, raised her hand more in class, and even joined the school's new cultural awareness club, just to help plan events, not to lead. One afternoon, she was helping set up for a Community Unity Day fair when a small group of middle schoolers approached her. They were part of a local youth center that had heard about her story. One of them, a girl with braids and bright eyes, asked shyly, "Do you really know karate?" Maya smiled. "I do. Can you show us something? Not fighting, just how you stay calm when you're scared." So Maya didn't throw a single punch. Instead, she taught them how to breathe. Deep in through the nose, slow out through the mouth. She showed them how standing with feet shoulder-width apart could make you feel grounded, How looking someone in the eye without flinching could say, "I'm here. I matter." The kids practiced with her, giggling at first, then growing serious as they felt the shift inside themselves. When they left, the girl with braids turned back and said, "You're like a real-life superhero." Maya laughed. "Nah, I'm just a person who learned that kindness and strength can live in the same heart." Back at school, the changes kept growing. The peer mediation team handled over a dozen conflicts that month, most of them resolved before they even reached a teacher. The principal started ending staff meetings with a moment of courage, where teachers shared small acts of bravery they'd seen in students. Even the lunchroom felt different, less divided, more mixed. Kids sat with people outside their usual groups, talking, sharing food, laughing. Maya never took credit, but she noticed, and it filled her with a quiet pride, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that settles deep in your bones and says, "This was worth it." One evening, as she walked home from the library, she passed the bike racks where it had all started, the place where her backpack had been thrown, her lunch stomped on, her dignity tested. She stopped for a moment, not with anger, but with peace. That spot didn't hold power over her anymore. It was just metal and concrete. The real power had always been inside her. She kept walking, the sun low in the sky, casting long shadows behind her. A neighbor waved from their porch. A dog barked playfully from a yard. Everything felt ordinary, and that was the best part. Because after everything, the fear, the silence, the confrontation, the healing, what Maya wanted most wasn't fame or revenge or even praise. She just wanted to live her life fully, safely, and without apology, and now she could. She still trained in the backyard sometimes, not to prepare for fights, but to stay connected to herself. Each movement reminded her, discipline isn't about control over others, it's about trust in yourself. And that trust had carried her through the storm. As summer break began, Maya sat on her porch with a glass of lemonade, watching fireflies blink on in the dusk. Her mom joined her, handing her a slice of peach cobbler, still warm from the oven. "You've got a lot to be proud of," her mom said. Maya took a bite, sweet and soft. "I'm just glad it helped someone else feel a little less alone." And that, more than any title or trophy, was enough. Because real strength isn't measured in belts or battles. It's measured in the lives you touch, the silence you break, and the courage you pass on. Quietly, gently, and without fanfare. Maya didn't need a spotlight to shine. She already did, just by being exactly who she was.